Here on Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Patriots lost to the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 1, 2025. We're also going to be talking about the big injury to Aaron Rodgers and how that affects not only the Jets, the AFC East, and the AFC Conference as a whole. We'll talk about some of our thoughts from Week 1 around the league, and then we have to preview the upcoming game on Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins. A ton to talk about today. Steve, I'm really looking forward to diving in with you, but first, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. A little tired, but I'm doing good. I mean, the football season's back. There was a bunch of really intriguing games this weekend. And we're going to be talking about one of the intriguing games of this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
It was a good week, I thought. Unfortunate news out of New York, because I never wish for injuries on anybody. Not a Jets fan or a Rodgers fan, but you never wish for anyone to get hurt. So,
yeah, that brings me to something, and we can talk about it, I guess, really quickly, because we're already going to talk with it. But I saw a couple of people on Twitter kind of like celebrating the injury. For one, that's poor taste. For two, talk about bad football juju. Okay, just don't like that energy. I definitely would not recommend doing that. But I just. All the hype that came around with him going to the Jets. By the way, that defense looks tremendous. Really, really impressive. Breece Hall looked good. They have some weapons. They're a competitive team, and I'm sure they're going to stay competitive. What they do, Steve, at quarterback now, no, it will not be Tom Brady. What they do at quarterback will be fascinating. But look, it changes a lot of things. The Dolphins looked good. But you always have the Tua head injury thing in the back of your mind. The Bills we thought might take a small step back. I'm not really necessarily worried about them right now. I wouldn't hit the panic button on them after Week 1. But Josh Allen has had a knack for turnovers, the most turnovers in the league at the quarterback position since he's come into the league. You and I talked off here yesterday about Sean McDermott being on the hot seat, and that's not going to change certainly after Week 1. The AFC is going to be very interesting in general. The AFC East, I really do think, is pretty much anybody's race. And I put the Patriots right in that mix. I have no idea. I just think it's too early to tell. All these teams are going to be very competitive down the stretch, and each of these AFC East divisional games, Steve, are going to be interesting matchups.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of talk this morning about the Jets looking elsewhere for someone else along with Zach Wilson. But you can rest assured, unless Wilson gets hurt this week, the Patriots are going to face him next week, because they're not going to bring anyone in who can come up to speed that quickly on their offense. So, we'll see Zach Wilson next week. But again, it's so tasteless to wish somebody injury. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan. I'm obviously not a Jets fan. But to wish ill on someone like that, you want to see them beat up and demoralized after a game, but you want them to be able to step right back on the football field the next day and play. I think that some people take this stuff too far.
Well, I'm just not a big Aaron Rodgers fan in general, but I don't want to see him tear his Achilles and get hurt. I was actually hoping the Jets would win that game and go like 6-0 and have just an absolutely beautiful collapse down the stretch. To me, that would be
I didn't
enjoyable.
want to see him go 6-0 because they play the Patriots next week.
That's a good point. 5-1, epic collapse down the stretch.
I wanted to see the Patriots beat Rodgers because they swept the Jets last season.
Right.
And, people are already talking about they were talking about with Rodgers, the Jets going 14-3. I was looking forward to seeing the Patriots beat them in Week 3, and quiet down that a little bit. But we'll have to see. They have made some great strides. They have made some additions on their football team. That's a really good team. And now the question is, how far can Zach Wilson take them?
Right, and I think the Robert Saleh handled it well so far yesterday. We're recording this September 13th, Wednesday, at 11:38 a.m. right now, but Eastern time. I would say that, Saleh said, hey, this is Zach Wilson's team. I think that they're starting to explore the veteran quarterback market, it appears. And I think that's the right move. Put your confidence behind Zach Wilson, bring in a veteran quarterback, give Wilson a couple of weeks. If he's not getting the job done in 3-4 weeks, I think you pull the plug and you switch over to the veteran and you try to, do something, you try to make something happen with it. I think that's the way they should handle it. And it seems like that's the way they are handling it. Steve, let's jump into, obviously we'll talk about that situation more even next week. Okay. But, we do want to discuss the Patriots, with this being Patriots 4th and 2, I might say. So I can hear Russ being like, this is not a Jets show.
Well, Russ wanted me to say, because he sent me a message just about 15 minutes ago, that going back to last year, he was right about Josh Allen, and that, he's back to his errant ways and throwing the football.
Okay. Well,
he had a comment, but this is a family show, so.
Is it a family show? We'll see,
I don't know.
I
know at times all of us have, slipped up there and had to put money in the
some more than others.
Yeah, I know. Miguel doesn't like it when we cuss, so we have
and I like Miguel too much. It's honestly why I cuss less. Shout out to Miguel, by the way. Anyway, so I would say, Steve, a couple of things. For one, let's just go with our instant reaction from this game. I would say there's a lot of positives to take away from this Patriots loss. I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. I do want to say that this loss was incredibly disappointing. More because it felt like, I don't like to take away credit for the other team, but the Eagles did everything to give this game to the Patriots, and the Patriots just seemingly didn't want to take it. And we have seen this movie too many times, Steve, in the post-Brady era, where they put themselves in a hole early. Defense kind of keeps them in it. Maybe they come back a little bit, but they can't seem to close it out and win this game. And I thought Mac Jones played well on the day as a whole, but was horrible to start, and had a really rough first quarter. Really bounced back. He might have been playing his best football in the second quarter. But so that we'll talk about that in a second. But I thought, the offense really struggled early. Yes, the rain was a factor. Yes, they have a terrific defense. There's, it's just week 1. I think the offense showed a lot of signs they're going to be very good down the stretch, Steve. But the defense really was the story. Geez, the Patriots defense looked lights out. So give me your thoughts. Week 1. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I mean, it's week 1. I know it's overreaction week because people, they're painting with a broad brush with 16 games to go. So, but we just have to take what's in front of us. And if you take what's in front of you, like you said, there's a lot of positives to come out of this. And one, is that I think this defense is legit. And, there was a lot of questions with this defense and people saying, well, they never beat a good quarterback last year. Well, you look at this game. Did they lose the game? Yes, they did. But the defense only allowed 1 touchdown to the Philadelphia Eagles, who, we know that offense is very tough to stop. And I thought they did a great job of confusing Jalen Hurts. I didn't think he saw the field exceptionally well on Sunday.
I thought he looked very frustrated, Steve.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that had to do, I saw some talk about, well, he didn't play in the preseason, and, that's probably just some rust. I think a lot of it had to do with the Patriots defense too. And, I listening to the broadcast, Tony Romo said, this Patriots defense is playing fast. And he says, I don't remember a Patriot defense this fast. I'm paraphrasing here, but you know what I'm saying. And, the additions they made on this defense, I mean, the guy I like when it comes to X's and O's, besides our own Evan Lazar, it's Brian Baldinger from NFL.com, who played the game. He was I think a 10-year, player in the game. And I love his breakdowns. And he did a breakdown of the Patriots rookies. And he was like, Patriots rookies had a great day because every one of them contributed. And he went down the list and he showed some of the plays they made. Was it all perfect? No, not at all. But, for their first NFL game going against a team that was in the Super Bowl last year, I think they accounted themselves extremely well. And I'm very, very bullish on this defense.
Yeah, same here. I think there's a lot to like, from rookie contributions from Keon White, Christian Gonzalez, to guys in the secondary, Bro Peppers, Duggar. I thought Juwan Bentley played a terrific game. Matt Judon, Uche, guys up front. I thought Dedrick Wise had a couple of really, really bad penalties. I thought it was one of his worst games. But as a whole, I mean, the defense played terrific. I mean, even the first drive, the Eagles moved the ball right down the field, Steve, and the Patriots were able to, kind of shut it down there at the end, and then forced a bunch of 3-and-outs throughout the game. Again, Jalen Hurts and that Eagles defense or offense looked extremely frustrated all day. Every time they panned to him on the CBS broadcast, he just looked a little like either pissed or dejected. I'm not sure exactly what the word would be, but he just wasn't happy, and they looked a little rusty. Now defensively for the Eagles, again, what a talented group. I thought that there were signs, Steve, of Bill O'Brien's fingerprints all over the offense, from a play design standpoint, from scheme, spacing, just a lot of things. Was it perfect? No. I thought there were some hiccups there. For example, I thought Demario Douglas got a lot of snaps early. There was a play later in the game where Mack threw a ball and the ball landed nowhere close to where Douglas was. I think he was supposed to go up more and decided to kind of come over more. I think there was a little miscommunication there. I thought the screens I talked about this on Monday. The too many screens. I don't understand how many times they want to try to screen a team that has such an athletic front. And typically you're calling a screen because you're hoping the defense is going to over pursue. You dump it off, you get the yards after catch. I understand the philosophy behind it. The Eagles don't blitz, and it clearly didn't work. So I'm not sure why they were doing that or running straight middle into the arms of Fletcher Cox so many times. That pissed me off. Aside from that, there was a lot of good things. Hunter Henry looked really good after coming off a nice strong summer. I thought that obviously you got some contributions from a couple of different key guys. Stevenson looked a little sluggish. I chalked that up, Steve, to the stomach bug he was dealing with. And all in all, there was a lot of positives to take out about this, to this game. Give me some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, the offense, and again, I mean, with the screens, I think everyone was frustrated watching that. But at the same time, Bill O'Brien didn't want to put those two rookies, the interior positions, under too much stress this week, because it is their first game and they might be called upon to play again next week. We don't know, and I think he wanted to build a little confidence in those guys. So, that's why they tried, as you said, O'Brien had his fingerprints all over the game plan. They were going to try to get in rhythm, move fast, get the ball out of Mac's hands really quickly, and try to negate the pass rush of theirs by screening them, because hopefully you catch them out of position. And it didn't really work, but I get where they were going with that, and I didn't have a whole lot of heartburn with it, but I thought the passing game was a lot better than we were expecting. I mean, I heard some people say, well, Mac might not even finish the game because that pass rush will sack him 14 times or whatever. I thought they game planned around that, and like you said with O'Brien, they put guys in motion. They bunch formations to get them open at the line of scrimmage. Those are all the little things that they weren't able to do a year ago. And I think Mac's confidence level is much higher than it was a year ago. And when I watching the game, it was 16-0, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go. This is not good. But then the next thing you know, it's 16-14, and Mac looked really, really strong. Especially that second touchdown pass to
Kendrick Bourne.
Yes, that was a beauty. I thought that was a beauty, and Bourne ran a tremendous route. So I was, other than the running game, which was pretty much, I don't want to say completely non-existent, but it kind of
outside of a handful of Stevenson carries, it was pretty much a non-factor. And Jonas chimes in. I loved how Mac wasn't afraid to sling it downfield, and he also says, we lost the game. However, I feel like we're off to a great start offensively, considering last year's week 1. And I think those are both good points, Jonas. And
yes, great points.
And I like I said, the offense ultimately. I just didn't think did enough. There were too many missed opportunities. And like I said, I put a lot of that on Mac Jones. I do. I think that there was, and some of it was just on, some rookie inexperience, which we can get to, and a few other things. And look, I don't want to make it come off like I thought Mac Jones was flat out terrible, but he needs to be better in some of these moments, and like I said, if he played as well as he did in the second quarter to start the game, Steve, I very much think the Patriots win this game. And I mean, you lose the game by 5, and I would say the offense pretty much gave the Eagles defense. They basically handed the Eagles about 13-ish points basically. So, I mean, it really should be a podcast today where we're talking about how well it. By the way, it's so dark in this room right now because it's so cloudy outside. I'm like, do I need to get up and turn on a light? Because I feel like I'm in a cave. But if you're not watching, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But anyway, I would just say that there's just too many inconsistencies in his game. I would also, arguing against myself, I would say it's the first week in a new system against a tremendously good defense. With 2 rookies at guards. And even though they played well, they're not as good as Cole Strange and Mike Onwenu.
No.
And so I think there are factors there. I thought that we saw glimpses, Steve, to that we were hoping to see with Mac, that he could be, this could be the beginning of his best year as a pro. 35 of 54, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Really, really good day like I said, on the whole. That one, the pick 6 really is the throw I wish he could have back. Because yes, it was a tip ball, but it was tipped, but it was just way too high, bad off target throw. It just wasn't a good throw.
Yeah, it was definitely off target. And then, Bourne tried to make a play on it, which is what you want.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for the Patriots, if it hit his hands and fell straight down,
so
no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
It just took an absolute worst scenario for the Patriots because it bounced straight up. And when you're throwing in tight windows in the secondary and you see the ball go up, when you're on offense, that's not a good sign.
No, I mean, as soon as it happened live, I mean, as a fan, you're just going, well, you know what the result's going to be. And of course, it has to land in, the best player on that Eagle secondary, Darius Slay.
Yeah. And he made a great run on that, by the way.
Yeah, he's a terrific player. Terrific player.
He is a terrific player.
And I want to get. Go ahead.
No, that whole defense is terrific. But no, I mean, that was on Mac. And, I'm not going to say it was on Bourne too, because he tried. It's just, it was raining. It was off target and high. And he tried to make a play on it. And nobody knows it's going to bounce straight up in the air. So, it's just one of those unfortunate things, the way the ball bounced. But they got to get out of that. We saw this too many times last year where they dig themselves into too deep a hole, and then they come back and play well, but ultimately they can't get over the hump. I mean, when you spot the Eagles 16 points, that's awfully tough to come back and win a football game. Now, the opportunity was right there in front of them at the end of the game, But I saw a lot of one other thing about the offense. We'll get into the end of the game, I'm sure. But
that's coming.
Yeah, I saw a lot of criticism about Keyshawn Boutte. He needs to learn that it's 2 feet in the pros and blah, blah, blah. You got to remember. Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't for lack of trying to get that foot down. He tried to drag it. I mean, it's just, again, it's one of those bang bang plays, but people need to remember. It is, but
it's just one of those situations, Steve. He's a rookie. It's his first game.
Yeah.
He's used to 1 foot inbounds. We just need it to be 2. And you saw the difference in a couple of Kendrick Bourne scenarios versus someone with lesser experience. I'm not dumping on the kid. I do have questions about why he was in the game over somebody else, which I'll get to here shortly as well.
Right. But he's not an X receiver. Even at LSU, he was more of a Z, slot guy. And because Parker was out, they felt like the best scenario was to put him outside on the X. And, maybe if Parker plays, he plays that ball differently and they make that first down. We don't know. But, even if he catches it, it wasn't in the end zone. So there's no guarantee that they would have won the game. They just would have had a first down on, I think, the 9 or 10 yard line. But there was still
they might have only needed a field goal to win.
Well,
which
we'll get into that too.
But I do want to mention, before I get into a couple of things, I do want to mention Kendrick Bourne looked poised for a big season prior to the year. And this game did really nothing to dispel that kind of theory. 6 catches, 64 yards, 10.7 a catch, 2 touchdowns. I think the 3 players that Mac looks to rely on more than any other players, Bourne, Henry, Stevenson. Those are the big 3. Okay. I do think there's obviously other contributors. I'm just saying those are the 3 guys that he leans to the most. So I thought that Bourne looked really good, Steve. But there's questions here. For one, I would say Juju Smith-Schuster playing, I would say, a very limited amount of offensive snaps. What was it, 40%, I think, of the offensive snaps, if I'm not mistaken. That, to me, is concerning on a couple levels. Are they just being careful with the knee? Whatever. I think the biggest issue is that we just talked about Keyshawn Boutte at the end of the game with trying to make that sideline catch. Why wasn't Juju in the game? He's standing on the side. He's standing on the sideline. After the game, the coaches say it's not a conditioning issue. Okay, is it an injury issue? Is it the theory was going around that he might have not run might have run the wrong route or something like that, and that's why he was on the sideline, and that he was having some issues not being in the right place. I don't know. All I know, Steve, is that I don't think it's unfair, just as we did with Tyquan Thornton, looking at some of the rookies who were drafted around him in that position. I don't think it's unfair for us to look at what Jakobi Meyers does throughout this year and look at Juju Smith-Schuster and see how they fare, because they picked Juju Smith-Schuster over Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers had a pretty good debut with the Raiders over the week. Juju Smith-Schuster was off to a slow start. I'm saying it's early. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying it's going to be something to watch because it never really made sense from the jump. We know the Patriots have struggled kind of with the receiver position, and 2 guys they gave some money to, one in an extension, one in the new deal. One couldn't suit up because of an injury that he frequently deals with, and the other one played such a limited role, especially in crunch time, Steve. To me, that was a troubling sign.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the reasoning was behind it. I mean, he was on the field just prior to that, I believe, to that final drive. So I don't know. Maybe he got nicked up on that drive prior to it. And Bill isn't going to tell us. So
no, sure, no. But he said, but that's why his actions make it so.
Right.
Well, his actions tell you.
Juju isn't an X either. That's Parker, and the other X is supposed to be Thornton, who's on IR. So,
I'm not sure if you're arguing or agreeing with me, but either way, I feel like my point is emphasized.
It is what it is. They rolled the dice. They went with the rookie. I don't know why. and I don't fault him.
I'm not even complaining. They went with the rookies. Give me Demario Douglas. Give me Kayshon Boutte. Let's see it. The only receiver I really care to see out there on a regular basis is Kendrick Bourne. I want a youth movement there. I'm with the youth movement all over the team. And I thought Demario Douglas had some really nice routes and he looked like he was moving at a good clip compared to the rest of the players. And I'm really encouraged by how much run he got in his rookie debut for a 6th round pick. We all were kind of curious what it was going to look like. Excuse me. With him, them shutting him down a little bit more towards the end of the preseason, Steve. The fact that he was able to get in and get so much run, I think tells you a lot of what they think about him and what he can bring to this offense this season.
And he still has a ways to go too. Because there was one pass from Mac that almost got picked. And of course, the New England fans and media, as wonderfully positive as they are, well, that was a terrible throw by Mac. It really wasn't. That sideline pass to Douglas, he rounded off and he didn't come back for the ball, and it allowed the corner to jump the route, the slot guy, and it almost got picked off. But I think that one was on Douglas. But, we're nitpicky here because I thought for his first game, I thought he showed a heck of a lot,
Yeah.
And you have to be encouraged by what you saw with him. And his plate will only get fuller. Week 1, they're trying stuff out. They're seeing what works. And, we're going to see a different game plan this week. And I'm encouraged with the offense. I think we saw a lot of good things from them. They still have a lot of things to tighten up on. But I think once they get their 2 guards back, they'll have a much better running game, and it'll allow them to be more balanced.
Right. Steve, let's get into another question here. How much of this loss was on Bill Belichick? I thought that there were some, to me, there were a couple different coaching decisions, I would say, that I think are really second guessable. I feel like I'm like Nick Fitzstevens, just going with making up words, and I mean that as a tremendous compliment to him. But I would say definitely I never really understood the idea of not kicking the field goal to go ahead and cut that lead down anyway, especially when your defense had been playing lights out. It's like, take a little pressure off that offense. You felt like you were going to get the ball back. I thought Bill's answer after the game was BS. There was 9.5 minutes left. It was plenty of time. There's just go. And then he talked, and then there was, an analytical based question. And Mike Reese talked about, the analytics was like less than 1% better chance they win for going for it versus kicking the field goal, which I would say to stuff it, not to Mike, because I love him. He's the best. But just in general, when does Bill Belichick play the analytical game, feel the game out? And to me, the decision not to punt there at 4th and 17, especially after it was 4th and 12, and you take another procedural delay game call, you punt that ball and you go ahead, even if you tell Bariner, hey, 20 yards, who cares? It doesn't matter. Punt the ball out of bounds. Just make them earn it. Play the field position game, Steve, and give your offense a better chance. Now, the offense did get chances to come back and win this game, and they squandered them away, unfortunately. I just didn't like a couple of those in-game decisions, and I'm sure Bill would care to hear that I disagree with him.
I don't think he'll lose much sleep over it.
I have a feeling he won't.
But no, it's hindsight's always 2020, and I know several times in the past, especially last year.
Bingo.
Why are they kicking a field goal here?
Bingo.
They need 6. You're not going to beat this team with 3s. You need 6s, and if they make it, then we're all saying, wow, Bill was really smart there. Obviously, they talked about it with Bill O'Brien, because Bill O'Brien has a lot of the same leeway that Josh McDaniels has, because Belichick trusts him. And maybe they saw something that they felt like, hey, this is going to work. Now, obviously, it did not. And you're right, Todd. 3 timeouts.
Yeah.
It's easy to play was it Karnak the Magnificent after it's already over? But, I don't know. I did not have a problem with them not kicking the field goal, because I was thinking the same thing. How long can you hold this team down? You don't want to kick a field goal here and then have them go down and score again. So go for the 6. And that's how I felt about it. Obviously, Mike Reese agreed with me. So I take that as a compliment. Bill probably didn't agree with me.
Joel writes in, it feels like some of Mac's passes didn't have much zip on it. What do you think? I agree. I agree. I thought that especially outside the numbers, some of them looked slow. I'll say this. He had some heat on that KB second touchdown pass. I mean, that had some fire in it. It was the numbers outside Joel, especially late. And part of me wonders if I'm going to say something that I also feel like is I'm kind of wondering if Mac purposely wasn't firing the ball super hard on the outside later in the game, because so many guys had issues with drops. I also know that Mac's velocity is not where it needs to be, and we've talked about that a numerous number of times. He just doesn't have that kind of arm where it's always me firing out there. It looks like, he looks like he was purposely taking some off the ball. Steve, did you see that? I don't know. It looked really slow.
Some of those outside passes weren't that deep.
No.
And, maybe, he felt like, hey, if I throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, not that Mac has a 95-mile, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe he was thinking, if I put the mustard on this so close, the last thing we need is another ball to bounce up straight in the air. And maybe he did take some stuff over that. But to Todd's point,
yeah.
I don't think it was a lack of confidence in the kicker or that they didn't trust him. I just think Bill felt like they needed 6 points.
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I get that. I don't know if it was a lack of confidence.
Because if they didn't have confidence in him, they wouldn't have let Nick Folk go.
And that's a good point, too. I also think I wonder if that could have played a factor. I don't know. I mean, Mike Reese said prior to the game that he was a little sporadic with his accuracy, but he was kicking it pretty deep. The conditions were a little weird. Yes, they lightened up later in the game, but early on it was a little sketchy. I don't know. There's just a lot of X factors there. I don't know. I don't agree. I just don't agree, Steve, with some of those in-game decisions. And ultimately, it's on the players. They had the opportunities, despite the coaching thing talking about. They still had the opportunity to win the game. They just didn't execute. So,
and that's not all on the quarterback.
No, it's not on the court. It's not all on the quarterback. I think, like I said, Mac Jones deserves blame for how this game started. He was not good. He did play better throughout the game, and I thought that I thought the coaching, some of the coaching decisions I thought are not ones that I would agree with, and I think that he would do them differently, despite what he says on the Greg Hill show the day after. But that's just me. Anyway, let's step aside here just for podcast purposes, and then we will talk about some of the thoughts on the week one. But first, please subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Please like, share, leave us a review. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings so other Patriots fans can find us. And we will be back right after this. Okay, and we are back here on Patriots 4th and 2. Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. I just want to thank everyone for joining in. We got a couple of new faces in the comments. We see Chris and Joel, who are always great listeners. Jonas, I think you messaged in last week, which is awesome. And Todd checking in. So that's cool.
Todd runs a Facebook group on the Patriots. So
oh, good.
That I post to all the time. He's a great dude, diehard fan. And he had Bill autograph his arm a few years ago.
Yep.
And then he went straight down and got a tattoo. He was telling Bill about it, and he had the pictures, and Bill was laughing. So he said,
That's
just
awesome.
Don't write no checks.
It's not a bad idea, though.
Bill autographed his arm like in this area, I believe. And then Todd went down and had it tattooed on there. Todd's a great dude.
Todd, don't be a stranger, man. All right. So, Steve, we talked about the Aaron Rodgers injury. We talked about the loss to the Eagles. Give me your overall thoughts on the Week 1 NFL action. I thought the referees and the officials had a couple of really rough games. What a surprise. It's still the extension of the preseason for them, too. I thought there was a lot of sloppy football around the league. Again, not to be surprised. I don't understand why, like I saw several players, Kyle Van Noy comes off the top of my head, even though he was certainly not the only one who was like a lot of sloppy football games. And I'm like, well, yeah, no crap, dude. Like you guys asked for less practice. You asked for, no one wants to play in the preseason. The coaches are limiting your preseason snaps because they don't want to get anybody hurt. And then people are wondering why the games are a little sloppier. I'll tell you, it's hard to go ahead and predict what you think is going to happen in Week 1. It's just as hard, Steve, in Week 2, because you don't know who's going to show up and who's, not going to show up, and what performance was kind of a fake out. Perfect example is the Browns and Steelers play this week. I was talking to my brother about this, and he was like, "Oh, well," he's like, "I don't think the Steelers are very good. The Browns should whoop them." And I go, "This will be just so NFL." For the Steelers to get their ass kicked by the 49ers, and then for the Browns to just dominate the Bengals, and then for the Steelers to dominate the Browns. It would just make too much sense.
I fully expect it. I fully expect that to happen.
100%.
The predictions for the Steelers this year were all over the place. I saw a lot of people saying they were going to be terrible, that they'd only win 5 or 6 games, which I don't see that happen. But I saw a lot of other people saying they were going to make the playoffs this year. So, we'll see. It's one game against the 49ers, who, like the Eagles, are a really good team. The Steelers kind of bit the bullet. They look terrible against, the 49ers, which I think a lot of people are going to look like that this year. But at the same time, a lot of people were really high on Kenny Pickett this year. I think he'll play much better against Cleveland.
Right.
Although they have a good pass rush too, but I think they're going to move the ball against Cleveland a lot more. So.
Well, and Steve, I just think, there was a couple of interesting, things come along the way. Start off with, the Lions setting the Chiefs early. Man, that Chiefs receiver group is rough, certainly. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that works out. They certainly missed Travis Kelce a lot in that game too. The Dolphins Chargers game was awesome. I wish I had seen more of it live. I really just saw highlights just because the Patriots game was on at the same time. And obviously we'll be talking about the Dolphins here shortly. NFC wise, the Cowboys really dominated the Giants. Obviously, the 49ers just look so good. Brock Purdy, 4 months after a UCL Tommy John surgery to come in. They talked about his arm fatigue. Maybe his arm was fatigued from fist pumping so much after they just, after another scoring drive. Did you hear what Trent Williams said?
No.
He said that he was hoping. He was actually at one point in the game. he's one of the tackles. He's the left tackle for the 49ers. But he said at one point he was actually hoping the Steelers would get first downs because he needed a break because the 3 and outs were too quick. He couldn't catch his breath, and I thought that was hilarious and disrespectful at the same time.
Well, yeah. Again, it's week 1, and the guys, they're not completely in football conditioning yet. So, and I get that. I mean, that's part of the sloppiness. It's week 1, and the guys aren't all the way in condition yet. So that's funny though. Christian McCaffrey had such a great game.
Oh yeah, he's a perfect fit for that team, that system. And Brandon Ayuk looked great too. They have just so many weapons on that team. It's incredible. But yeah, no, interesting week 1 certainly. A lot of injuries, which is unfortunate. But again, with limited practice and just not playing as many reps, those soft tissue injuries are going to happen. I mean, it just is. And I do want to mention Valerie checks in, talking about the Patriots game. Felt like we had a chance to win that game, but we just couldn't get there. Disappointed, but great comeback, great to watch. It certainly made it interesting. I'll tell you, Valerie, as soon as that Peppers hit, which was awesome, that caused the Jalen Hurts fumble, I thought for sure the Patriots were winning. I
thought they were going to win right
obviously, there. This is not the same caliber of game, okay? So I'm just comparing the feeling. But I had the same feeling as when Donta Hightower forced the Matt Ryan fumble in the Super Bowl. Okay, so it was just like you just felt like the momentum had been on the Patriots side. You felt like that was what they needed. They had it. And I was telling Steve on Monday, and it just felt like it was going to be like one of those storybook things. You felt like it was Mac's moment, Brady in the building, comeback, defense making a play, go down and win it at the end. That's to me why it was so disappointing, because you felt like they had it in their hands. And they let it go. So I just wanted to share that since Valerie checked in. Thanks for joining the show.
Yep. Thank you, Valerie.
Steve, let's talk about the Patriots and Dolphins. Squish the Fish is back, baby. And it's going to be a primetime game Sunday night. Looking forward to that. Wow. Do the Dolphins look like a dangerous team right now, Steve? They did a lot of interesting things on both sides of the ball. We know defensively that they're really, really good. Vic Fangio, Belichick calling him one of the better defensive coaches or coordinators in the league. And he certainly has a very specific style. And there are things we can talk about going into that. But he should be a good addition for that team. Mike McDaniel, one of the more forward-thinking offensive minds in this league, as the head coach there. He has Tua really locked in and looks extremely comfortable, Steve, in this system. And they were doing some things with Tyreek Hill that looked almost arena football-esque, Steve, putting him in motion constantly. And that's a guy who already has so much speed. It's really his speed and his acceleration, the way his feet work. Forget what you think about him as a person. His ability is undeniable, and it's really – he's a handful. I mean, flat out. He's going to be tough to deal with. He put on an absolute show in this week. What do you do, Steve? Give me your thoughts about the Dolphins. First, your initial thoughts on the Dolphins, your thoughts on the matchup, and what do you do to slow down some of this speed on Miami that just pops off the tape when you watch them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have a ton of speed. And, we saw a lot of that last year. And when Tua is healthy and on the field, this is a really dangerous offense. I mean, they're facing another really good offense. I don't think they run the ball as well as the Eagles do, but that passing game is no joke. I rewatched some of the Chargers game. I'm not going to tell you I rewatched the whole thing. That one touchdown, where Hill caught it in end zone where he just blew past the guy. I kept watching it, and I'm like, the safety at that point, he was on that side to help. And, he kind of just sat there looking in the backfield until it was way too late. And then, he was 5 yards behind the play when they threw it in the end zone. And that's one of the things I think the Patriots are going to do this week. They'll have probably Jonathan Jones on him, with safety help over the top. That's always the way they've approached this in the past. I think that's how they're going to have to do this, and they're going to have to roll the dice with Jalen Waddle, probably with Gonzalez. I wouldn't be surprised if they start chipping these guys with other people when they're on the field. They've done that in the past. They've tried to chip guys and, but yeah, this is going to be another really tough test for the defense. Again, I don't think they have the running game as Philly does, but it's going to be tough. And, again, week one, you don't want to draw too many conclusions from it, but it looked like the Chargers, of course, they have Austin Eckler, but they were running the ball extremely well.
No, they were. And, the Chargers are a podcast in themselves. Okay. But so let's just table that.
Well, it's funny because I said this at the end of last year. I know this is a Patriot show, but I'm gonna go off on a Russ's rant here.
Oh, all right, Steve's rant.
Yeah. So, I don't think there's a quarterback in the league besides Mahomes that gets more free passes than Herbert.
Are you waiting for my response? I thought you were going to rant, so I was sitting back.
No, because again, I mean, this guy gets free passes all the time. Nobody ever says, "Hey, whenever they have a close loss, it's like, oh yeah, it was on this guy or that guy, but it's never on Herbert."
I would say this: I think Herbert, some of his throws, there's only a handful of guys on the planet that can make the throws that he has. He has talent, an incredible amount of talent. I would say the thing about Herbert is there's something weird about how talented he is and how they don't quite win enough of those games with that talent. And it's weird. Personally, I think it's on Brandon Staley because I think he's an overrated hack. But that's just me. I think Staley sucks, and Herbert needs a real coach. But that's
I go back to those days of Phillip Rivers and LT and the Chargers. They're going.
The Chargers are Super Bowl favorites since I was like 10 years old. Since the Patriots basically won their first Super Bowl, the Chargers pretty much every year, it was their year. And look, there's a lot of top end talent on that team, Steve. Their depth questionable, but I really think it comes back to Staley more or less. Speaking of coaches on the hot seat, I think he's gone after this year if they flounder because there's a lot of expectations around that team.
Because I don't think they're going to be there at the end.
Joel, just bravo, Joel, right here. Poor coaching gets a pass. I think so. This is why you're one of my favorites, okay? And I'll just like Deion Sanders picks his favorite kids, I pick my favorite listeners, and you're one of them. Do you know that? Did you see that, by the way? Do you know the reference I'm talking about?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's something my dad would do.
At this point, you know what? Deion can say anything, and I'm buying it.
Yeah, everyone's buying it. You get 7 million people watching the Colorado Buffaloes.
Yes.
All right, back on track, Steve. Back on track. We got
back on track.
Okay. Yeah. The Dolphins.
But, this Dolphins team. I think the Patriots will be better on offense than the first time they played them last year when Tua was in the game. I'm expecting the Patriots to be able to move the ball against this team. I'm not saying they're going to light them up, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball and score some points on this team.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. I do think the Patriots will slow down Miami's speed a little bit and slow down their scoring a little bit. Tua 4-0 versus the Pats, so they have to figure him out. To me, Steve, I think the real question is, obviously, you got to start with Hill and Waddle. Those are the two guys you got to figure out. As Joel writes in, you can't have Gonzo on Hill. No. I think in what they'll probably do is they will go with, they've typically in the past had John Jones follow Hill, which is a really tough assignment, and then you put Gonzo on Waddle and you roll the dice there. By the way, Christian Gonzalez, what a debut for him. I thought
great debut.
I thought a lot of people said there were several people I read nationally that said he had a good game, but he let up too many catches. Again, they weren't saying it wasn't a good performance, but there was a lot of like he was good, but and I'm just like he was going against Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, and there were some really big plays. I mean, this is a heck of a debut, so I would push back on that. Again, I think the majority of people
you have to look at things in context.
Right. And I thought his debut was excellent. He'll have up and downs. It's an incredibly difficult position. So early returns good on there. I thought early last year, I was looking back at this, Steve, last night, and early in the game last year, they tried doing some single high safety stuff. Obviously, they were watching Hill over the top. Later in the year, again, they weren't going against Tua anymore because he was unfortunately hurt with that concussion. They went with the split safety look. They had a little bit, better. They fared a little better against Hill. I think they'll go with the split safety stuff. I don't think this is going to be one of those things where they're just going to have one safety back there. I don't think that's what you want to do. I think you need a GTFB and make sure your safeties are playing deep and not getting beat over the top to slow them down. You need to somehow keep this Miami offense in front of you. With that being said, Steve, because I want to get into our 3 keys and predictions before we talk about some of our games of the week and our final thoughts, give me your 3 keys to victory for the Patriots this week. How did they beat the Miami Dolphins?
Well, I think the first key, defensively, because we're talking about Miami's offense, I know the Patriots play more single high safety than anybody, but they're going to have to get away from that this week against Miami because Tua is very, very successful against that look, so you can't have that. I think that's one of the keys. I think that you're not going to take away Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, but I think you just have to limit their. You can't have them going for 200 yards again. So that has to be right out the window. If you hold them under 100 yards, then you're going to give yourself an opportunity to win. I think part of that in defensively is you need more speed on the field. And I think this is a Mapu week. And I think this is a Keon White week. I think they need those guys on the field, maybe in coverage for Mapu, but, coming off the edge and pressure for Keon White, and very limited snaps. He was outstanding on Sunday. And, going against Lane Johnson, who's one of the best right tackles in the game. I know Patriots fans don't like Lane Johnson and for obvious reasons, but, he's really, really good. So I think that key number 2, offensively, I think, what they have to do is spread the ball around, put guys in motion, get the running game going, and, put the ball in Mac's hands. I think, he's going to be ready for that. And I think O'Brien will have a good game plan again of attacking Miami's defense and finding where they can take advantage of matchups because they do. I think Hunter Henry will be primed for a big game this week. And number 3, don't beat yourself and start fast. I mean, you can't go against good teams and spot them 16 points in the first 15 minutes. I mean, you just can't do that. And they have to stop beating themselves, especially early in the game. I think that's a real big key this week. And are we giving predictions right now?
No, hold off for a second.
Okay.
Hold off. So I like those keys. I would say my first one is you need to protect Mac Jones better. You're going against another really strong defensive front this week. When he had time to throw, there were usually good things that were happening. I thought one of the things that Mac did really well last week we didn't really talk about was stood tall in the pocket, kind of stared down the barrel a bit, and was able to fire a couple of tight window throws, even when he knew he was going to get hit.
And
I thought
he got
that was
smacked.
He got smacked a couple of times, and he still delivered strikes on a lot of those passes. I give him a lot of credit for that. So they had to do a better job up front. Calvin Anderson came off, after after really just being activated, played 80 snaps at right tackle last week. I'm hoping and when you and Strange are going to be back, they could use him. I did think the rookies held up well better in pass than in run protection, as you mentioned. But, I still think overall, they need all the help they can get against this front, and they need to protect Mac better. For two, I think they need to get after Tua quickly. With the kind of speed Miami has, this will be true pretty much in any offense in the league. The longer the offensive players have to get open, there's a better chance you're going to be able to find some space. I mean, you can only cover for so long. This goes the same with Miami. I mean, it's going to be hard to cover these guys. If they can dial up some things on Tua, Steve, I think that they really, really need to try to get him uncomfortable quickly and have some throws that are a little bit sporadic. And to me, here's something, Steve, that I thought is kind of a funny thing. My last key is third down. And if you go back to last week, we had a similar key, but very different. I was talking about their success on first and second down because we knew how the Eagles were on an on-schedule offense. You were really concerned about third down, okay? And I thought both turned out to be, kind of true. Early in the game, when the Eagles had more success on first and second down, they were moving at a pretty strong clip, a little over 5 or 6 yards, pretty much a play. And then it totally flipped. And that's when the Patriots really surged back, where they were getting the Eagles off early. To your point, the Patriots last year held one of the league's best third down offenses from last season, the Eagles, to 30.6% in week 1. So that's what they need to do, in this week. The Dolphins last year on third down were 24th in the league at 36.6% success rate. But they were over 5% better against the Patriots than the rest of their games. To me, Steve, I just think in third downs, the Patriots need to win this, get off the field, not let them extend those kind of plays. And I thought they did a good job against the Eagles. We'll see if they can carry that over this week. I think third down is going to be a big one. Give me your keys or your predictions, Steve, for this week. Who do you have winning and why? I
think the Patriots are going to win this week. I have them winning 27-24. I think, they find a way to start scoring in these red zone drives. I think that the defense does enough to slow them down, hold them to 24 points, and it gives them an opportunity to win one of these close games on Sunday night. I think the crowd is going to be into it. Sunday night, the whole world's watching, and I think the Patriots are going to respond in kind.
Okay, good to know. I like it. For me, I wanted to mention that I also had we've had Brian Katz on the show before a couple of times. He covers the Dolphins. I wanted to get him on. I couldn't. I did ask him for a prediction. He thinks it's going to be a lower scoring game. He likes a kind of a grittier defensive game, actually, but he does think the Dolphins win this 120-17. I asked him for his prediction because I was curious, and we were going back and forth. He had some other really interesting stats, but I didn't get a chance to write them all down, and I cannot do that on the fly because I'm just not skilled enough to do that. I will say, for me, Steve, I'm leaning towards excuse me one second. I have just a puppy doing puppy things apparently right now, just eating up paper right below my feet. I would say the Patriots, I have them losing this game just barely. I do think it's going to be relatively, I think it's going to be extremely competitive, but I just think 27-23, I'm really worried with how they handled this speed. I would not be surprised at all if the Patriots win this game. With the Aaron Rodgers, I mean, this game would be important no matter what, Steve. With the Aaron Rodgers injury, this game becomes incredibly important for a lot of reasons. Obviously, you want to see the Jets. You want to see the Jets, beat the Jets the following week. But the Jets won a division game. The Bills lost one. The Patriots beating the Dolphins would. Every division game is going to count this year for the Pats, and I think that. They're going to have to try to figure out a way. If they could come away with going 2-0 the next 2 weeks, that would be huge for them. I just don't know if they can handle the speed from Miami and keep up with them. from an offensive standpoint. I certainly give them a strong chance. I'm not saying it's not going to be close. I need to see more from the Patriots offense. I want to see them break out of some of these old habits, Steve. I thought that, again, there were glimpses of the Patriots doing some really nice things last week on offense, but we still saw some bad habits that we've seen the last few years. I want to see them break out of that and kind of prove it to me before I see them winning these games. The Patriots have yet to win a game with Mac Jones at quarterback where the opponent scored 25 points or more. I mean, they have to figure that out. Those are the facts.
Well, we don't want Miami to score 24 or 25, so.
That's true. That's true. Joel writes in 20-24 Pats win. So he's writing in. So he's the only guy who was sending the prediction. So
he's 1 point off of mine.
Yeah. Yep.
And in fairness, I picked the Eagles to win last week, 28-20. So I was pretty close.
You were. All right, so let's talk about a couple of big games this week, Steve. I'm just picking. I didn't give you a heads up on these, so feel free to deflect me if you want to. But I thought this week, honestly, I felt like the Patriots were one of the bigger games this week. One of the games we talked about earlier, Browns and Steelers on Monday night, Steve. I really think this is going to be a pretty good game. And it goes back to what we started talking about at the beginning of the show, which is just because, what's the saying? It's like transitive property doesn't work in the NFL. A plus B doesn't, equal C. Just because the Browns dominated the Bengals and the Steelers got whooped by the 49ers doesn't necessarily mean the Browns are going to dominate the Steelers. Who do you think wins this game and why?
Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh finds itself this week. I mean, again, they were playing the 49ers. It's week 1. They did not look good. They're going to, rebound. They love beating Cleveland. So this is going to be one of those knockdown, drag out, last minute win type of things. But I think the Steelers win. I think Kenny Pickett's going to have a good game this week. Yeah,
no, I'm with you on that. I think the Steelers win this game as well. I actually thought the Jets and Cowboys was going to be a tremendous afternoon game. Unfortunately, it really loses a lot of interest with the Aaron Rodgers injury, Steve. But let's go to the other game, Ravens-Bengals, to start off the morning. I feel like Baltimore really had some issues early with that Houston team. We know the Bengals had some issues. I'm wondering which team's going to rebound the quickest. The Bengals will be at home. I think they really need to right that ship early. I'm not worried about them necessarily long term, but to have a bad division loss in week 1, now you're at home. If you're going to lose another divisional game in back-to-back weeks, that'd be a tough way for Cincinnati to start. But I think they bounce back, Steve. I think that offense finds themselves, and Joe Burrow kind of bounces back a little bit.
Another really close game. I like Cincinnati.
Okay, and then the last game, Steve, we're going to talk about tomorrow night's game, Minnesota at Philadelphia, the Vikings and the Eagles. The Vikings kind of screwed me last week in one of my survivor pool picks, unfortunately. So I don't want to. I'll be picking the Eagles, but I think it'll be an interesting game. Eagles obviously had struggles last week against the Patriots, but they were able to come out with the win, as we've talked about. The Vikings looking to bounce back, going on the road. Short week for the Eagles. Short week for both teams, really. Who do you have and why? I'm taking the Eagles, and I'm trying to take them by like 10 points, Steve. I think the Eagles are going to win comfortably in this one. I think you see them kind of bounce back. And after a frustrating start for the offense, I think they come out with a little chip on their shoulder after dealing with the Patriots defense last week.
Yeah, I think you're going to see what kind of a team Philly really has, and I think they win this one comfortably.
Yep. So those are our games of the week. I wanted to mention that. Steve, any final thoughts before we go ahead and say goodbye for the week?
Well, we didn't mention the Tom Brady thing, and I know it was limited.
Oh, my gosh, I did it again. I did it. Okay, I did it again. Look, I apologize. So last week, sorry, Steve, I cut you off, but last week, I didn't mention the Brady thing on purpose. I did after the show. I was going back and forth on it. I was like, well, do we talk about it? We might as well talk about it when it's over. And then just see what happens. And I decided at the last minute, you know what, we should talk about it. I forgot. Then I couldn't remember for the life of me last night. For the life of me, I was trying to remember what the heck was the other thing I wanted to talk about in the middle of the show. It was Brady returns home. Let's end the show with that. Screw final thoughts. We're talking about Brady. Steve, give me your thoughts on Brady coming back home and the fact that the Patriots will be letting him into the Hall of Fame early, waiving their team waiting period for the Team Hall of Fame, inducting him into the Team Hall of Fame, 6/12/24. Give me your thoughts on Brady's return.
Yeah. I just thought it was really cool. I know they were limited because it was halftime in a regular season game. So, they had to cut it short, but it was great seeing him run on the field that one more time. I think everybody loved that. He was wearing his jersey one more time, which is really cool. And I think it was overdue. I mean, I know he just retired, but, it was an opportunity for the people to get to say goodbye and thank him for 9 Super Bowls. I mean, they won 6 of those, but he took them to 9.
Right.
So, you got to love that. I think in June, they're going to pull out all the stops for this. I think it's going to be fantastic. But it was great to see him back, and I loved his comment that he's a Patriot for life.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought for one, I was surprised how many people thought there wouldn't be more. Like, I think people were expecting like something crazy to happen, a statue, a jersey retirement, a number retirement, whatever it was. Like I like you, I just thought they had a limited window. It's halftime. They're going to drag this thing out. I knew they were going to, and you knew it was going to be just one thing. This was just the precursor, the precursor to everything. This is the amuse-bouche of the entire Brady ceremony. They're going to pack the stadium. It's going to be a 2 or 3 hour event. I'm sure they're going to be. If there's not going to be a statue, they'll wait till they do a statue with him and Bill together. That's going to come. There's going to be some, no one's going to wear number 12 again. That's all how it's going to go down. Like you, Steve, I thought when he unzipped his jacket, it looked like Clark Kent stepping out of the phone booth as Superman. Although, please, Brady, stop with the fillers and the face procedures. It's starting to really get too concerning. But honestly, the fist pump, let's go. Him saying he was a Patriot for life. I think this sounds stupid, probably to some. I just feel like with the Patriots Brady divorce a couple of years ago, it really felt like the fans were the ones who were like the kids that were caught in the parents' divorce, and yeah. It's look, at the end of the day, we're everyone's a fan. The Patriots fans, you're fanatic of the team, you care about the team. It sucked how everything went down. No one wanted to see him go, and ultimately, it happened. But to see him come back, wear Patriots gear again, saying he's a Patriot for life, doing the let's go thing, running down the sidelines, it just felt like all was right in the world again, Steve. To me, I thought as a fan, simply kind of got a little closure.
Yeah, the stars were back in alignment.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
How did Quentin Tarantino and Kill Bill? The lioness has reunited with her cubs or something.
Pretty much. And so, it was put it this way, it was a really, really nice ceremony at halftime. I thought it was well overdue, much needed, and it was cool to see. I just want to mention one more time, please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the podcast ranking so other Patriots fans can find us. Steve Balestrieri, Derek Havens here, again, for Patriots 4th and 2. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Please check out some of Steve's work, Ian Lugs, and all the contributors to PatsFans.com. Be sure to check out the website for more content. We will see you guys next week to talk about not only what happens in this Miami Dolphins game, but talk about the Jets game and what's to come then. So we will be looking forward to that, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Hey, and don't forget,